Pledge of Allegiance. The school district of the Menomonie area, by embracing the unique needs and using the strengths of our diverse community, is dedicated to preparing all students to become lifelong learners, caring individuals, and responsible citizens. With that, let's move on to the agenda order and approval. Any suggestions, changes? All right, hearing none. Need a motion on that to accept. All right. So, recommendations and accommodations. We have some folks here from the Elementary Science Olympiad. Carl?
I'm going to go through the certificates from the Science Olympiad program. If you're here, come on up, because I don't know who's all here. Wyatt Pretzer, Julie and Ken Holziger, Stephanie and Justin Steinmeier, that way I can put my keys here. There you go. Monica Barrier, Amanda McCollum, Dan Dunbar, Luke Chase, Nikki Benton, Josie Wilterding, Ashley Miller, Heidi Erickson, Nico Pinovich, Casey Pogorelski, Nancy Quilling, Trista Lund, and Emily Beck. So I would just like to say how much I'm sure we as a board appreciate what you guys do as parents. I have a middle schooler who was down at State Science Olympiad not that long ago, 2 weeks ago, and it started with you guys at that level in elementary school. There's a reason why Dunn County dominates Science Olympiad in Menomonie and surrounding districts. It's parents like you guys. It can't be done without you, so we thank you very much.
Okay, on to highlight on youth. This month we're highlighting Oaklawn Elementary.
So, Joe, there's a video that was included in board docs, which we hope you've seen or will see, because Crystal put a lot of time and energy into it, and you get to actually see the children being excited about this activity. We're going to take just a few minutes of our Focus on Youth time, though, to have Nicole talk to you about AIM, and then Crystal talk a little bit about the project and put it in context for you. So, Nicole, you're up.
Hi, I'm Nicole Cook. I'm the Arts Integration Coordinator for the school district in Menomonie, and maybe most of you didn't know we had an Arts Integration Coordinator in the school district in Menomonie, but that's me. If you see the word AIM, that's Arts Integration. So Arts Integration is a grant-funded program sponsored by the school district. We are funded by the Margaret Cargill Foundation. Margaret Cargill was an educator, and she loved the arts, and was always good if you're involved in the cities and the arts at all, even though her foundation gives a lot of money to the arts across the United States. We were first invited to apply for this grant 7 years ago with Scout, actually, as a partnership focusing on pre-service teachers and early career teachers and moving them from Scout into the school district. It was originally developed and explored because of the percentage of early career teachers who usually leave teaching within the first 5 years of teaching in the district. So Margaret's vision was, how do we keep these teachers in to teach through the arts. So we do a lot of really cool things. Arts integration. We're not necessarily art for art's sake. Like I mean I'd love to, but I'm not gonna come into your classroom on Friday and do a Mother's Day craft with your students, okay? So we're not about asking teachers to spend time doing extra things for art's sake. We are teaching teachers quality art. We hire professionals to teach them. We hire people from Lego Education to teach them Legos, and then helping them to find ways to integrate that art into the curriculum that they're already teaching in the classroom. So for example, we're learning how to play the ukulele in an elementary classroom, okay? 7, 6, /1, 7, 14, 21. Okay, it sticks in your head. It's a great way. It's fun for the teacher. It's fun for the students. Dominique has taught. She's an AIM teacher. She has taught drumming and using music through stories in the classroom. We have about 40 teachers in the district who we've trained on Lego education. So everything from using Lego story tales, which are the big blocks your little kids use, to help students understand that stories have characters and setting and beginning, middle, and end, and letting them create their own vision in a Lego and then feel really inspired to write about it because it's their creation. It's not a picture that someone gave them. It's not someone saying, hey, write a story about this, right? They made this great creation and they're writing about it. We teach the teachers in different aspects. So we have a summer camp, a 3-day summer camp that teachers get to come to. It's sort of like a smorgasbord of all sorts of different things that they can be involved in. We have what we call AIM labs. Those are either after school, Saturday times for teachers learning a new craft to implement into their classroom. We also provide, I was in 1st and 2nd grade at River Heights this morning teaching the teacher along with the students about Lego education. So if I can help in the classroom and assist in the classroom and use this model we like to call I do, we do, you do, I'm gonna teach the class, and then the teacher and I are gonna teach the class together, and then hopefully that teacher's gonna run with it and do it themselves. So I spend a lot of time in the classroom, getting that rolling for teachers. And then we also will hire artists just to spend time in the classroom, helping the teacher in that same sort of manner. Get to know their art form and love their art form, in hopes that it kind of inspires them as just a person, because then they're sharing something that they really love, like this newfound love for painting or this newfound love for playing the ukulele, that now hopefully inspires them to have some joy doing that in the classroom. So our motto is teaching teachers, allowing them confidence and competence using arts in the classroom. That's kind of our goal. And I shared a doc with you. It's if you're a data person, which I know some of you are, some of you are not, you like the story, but we put together some great data about this really strong core group of teachers that we've had in the program since 2015, when we were doing Brian the Eye, since 2015. We're actually fully funded through October of 2023, and then we're looking for some ideas for sustainability after that. We have teachers say that, we feel supported because of AIM in what we do. It's the only fun PD we get, sorry. It's the fun PD. It's what makes me feel like, oh, I can't wait to go do this with my students in the classroom. So we hope it's teaching those teachers to enjoy teaching, the kids to enjoy learning, and then maybe those teachers will choose that as a lifelong career versus making an alternate choice to go do something else. So Lori is, Crystal is one of our AIM teachers. Crystal's actually kind of made the move from taking a lot of classes, implementing a lot of classes, and now she's actually reteaching. She teaches story tales throughout the district for us as well. So that's kind of part of our growth strategy, is to get the teachers to also not just coffee shop talk it, but to teach it to others and actually get them invested in it. So Crystal, I'm going to let her tell you about this fabulous new thing we're loving in the district called picture and writing.
So as Crystal hands out the books that students have written, I'll let her come back and just talk to you about this. We thought this was a great way of tying what AIM is and with an AIM implemented project. So one of the concerns of the board is writing, our students' writing skills. And so we took the opportunity to take an AIM class and use it during intervention time at Oak Lawn with students. These are truly students who have difficulty writing a sentence or two. Part of it is their struggle with their mindset that they're not good writers or I don't like to write. And this activity was really the brainchild of Crystal bringing it back to the building and working with her team. So I'm gonna let you take just a minute and kind of describe it.
Yeah, thank you so much. Again, I'm Crystal Booth, Intervention Specialist at Oak Lawn, and I'm also at the targeted Title I schools in the parochials. And I really want to thank Nicole and Lori for all of their support with this. As part of the AIM lab that I was in, we actually got some great lesson plans from Beth Olshansky, who's an artist. And her perspective and view on this is to really encourage the writing by having students create their art first. If they create their art, they're taking ownership into that piece, and they really want to talk about that piece. And in talking about that piece in the classroom, they're expanding their vocabulary, and they're using what they call some silver dollar words, and they're using action words and adverbs and adjectives to describe what they're doing. And they do a lot of brainstorming. There's all kinds of different graphic organizers and things within this and different lesson plans. And I thought this would be so fun to do, but I wasn't sure how I'd implement it. And Amy Winston and Misty Hollinger at Oak Lawn Elementary, their interventionists, they said this sounds great and would be perfect for several of their tier 2 writing groups. And they used it with 3rd, 4th, 5th grade. And the students just loved it. And it was a buzz while they were doing this. I mean, you could just hear it in the hallway, they'd be talking about it with other students, and everybody was just really excited about it. They took ownership, they loved doing it, and I think they all enjoyed the writing piece because it was just an intrinsic value to them. They felt motivated to do it. And I think we see it spill into other things that they're doing. So it was a great opportunity. I want to thank Amy, I want to thank the school district of Menomonie, and I think my fellow interventionists and Lori Smith for letting us do this. And the students are very excited about it, as you can see in the video. So
We have teachers even at the high school level using it, so it's a really wonderful.
So we'll just let you pass the books over to this side and I'll collect them as the meeting goes on. But thank you for letting us do this presentation, and if you haven't watched the video, please do so. A lot of time and work went into it, and you're gonna see the excitement in the kids' faces as they talk about this project. So thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, comments, ma'am? All right, thank you. All right, moving on to student communications.
Hi, I'm Student Body President Grace Hossie.
Grace, could you guys set those bags down so we can see you?
I'm Student Body Treasurer Kevin Leach.
And Logan's at class again, that's why he's not here. He's becoming an EMT. We have a few things for you today. The first annual Mighty Mustang invite will be on Friday, May 27th from 10 to 2 for middle and high schoolers, and on Tuesday, May 31st from 10 to 2 for district elementary schools. This is a track meet for students with disabilities who have APE or PT services. The middle and high school event will be for all schools in the VRC. The elementary event is for all district elementary schools. This event will take place at the high school track. All are welcome to volunteer or attend.
The MHS Forensics team earned the Excellence in Speech Award at the state this year. This is the highest award a team can earn, and this is the 14th consecutive season our team has earned this award.
FBLA qualifies for 3 nationals. Anna Sandy, Haley Hughesby, and Kinley Richards will represent Menomonie High School as they compete at the FBLA National Leadership Conference at the end of June. The MHS chapter will be also recognized as a champion chapter.
A very special congratulations goes out to the FFA horse team who placed first at the FFA Career Development events in Madison at the end of April. The team consists of Madison Hawk, Olivia Burstead, Brianna Forrester, and Kira Prochnow. Madison Hawk also placed first as an individual. The team will now be traveling to Indianapolis, Indiana next fall to represent Wisconsin at the National FFA Convention.
Olivia Rubenzer and Elena Zong are going to state for junior achievement next Thursday. And this will be the last meeting that Kevin and I and Logan will be talking at. So I'd like to introduce our 2023 student body president, Katrina Jaskowski.
Hi.
So you'll see her next year instead of me. Reports.
Before you go,
Thank you.
what are you going to do next year?
I will be attending UW Stevens Point for natural science education. So when I graduate, I will be certified to teach 4 through 12. So I'm thinking more high school, but I guess like student teaching will help me figure that out.
I will be going to the University of Idaho and majoring in mathematics and statistics.
Wow. There you go, April. Thank you. And Jenny, do you want to tell them a little bit about the bag that they put down on the floor?
Yes, that's a gift from the board and Joe, so we appreciate all of your help and coming to the meetings.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sure there's been a lot of nights where there was other things that you could have been doing, so thank you for coming in. Okay, on to community communications. This is the time to air your concerns and express your opinion on issues. There should be no negative or personal attacks against any individuals, including staff, board members, or administrators. Please indicate if you'd like the board, someone from the board or the administration to respond to your concerns. And when you come up, please state your name and your address. So first we have Scott Parker.
My name is Scott Parker. I live at 1109 North Shore Drive, just a few blocks away. So I'd like to start by saying that this is about our membership in the National School Board Association, and that we give $4,165 as of last year. That may be going up considering inflation is making prices across the board go up. So not to get into the controversial topics that happened before the letter was issued to the Biden administration, on September 29th, the National School Board Association issued a letter to Joe Biden saying they wanted school board meetings, just like this one, to be investigated by the FBI under the Patriot Act as domestic terrorists for parents that get upset, critical, unruly at these types of meetings. And I think that's incredibly inappropriate. So that letter was sent September 29th with the approval of the Board of Directors of the National School Board Association. A few days later, on October 4th, the Department of Justice, District Attorney Merrick Garland issued a memo to the FBI to have the FBI investigate school board meetings using the Patriot Act, considering disruptive parents as domestic terrorists. Following that, it was reported that the National School Board Association Southern Regional Director Pam Doyle wrote to another director, Beverly Slow, that one day after AG Garland's memo was released, she said, "I understand Chip Slavin, the former CEO, knew about the AG directives before they were published. So much for communicating with the board," she said. So this tells us that the CEO went behind the back of the voting board of the National Association of School Boards. This was later confirmed on November 11th that it was discovered that NSBA had coordinated with the White House and DOJ when they composed that letter. Following that, 20 states have either withdrawn their membership or plan to do so. Those states account for 40% of the National School Board Association's funding as of 2019. So if the school boards on a local level are receiving resources from the National Association, there's going to be, you could assume, 40% less resources coming from that. So this organization was founded in 1940. It's 82 years old. And the fact that they have a voting board of directors that approved the controversial letter to the executive office of the federal government, and then the CEO, or former CEO, because they replaced him, went behind the back of the voting board to collude with the federal government to make that memo that was released by the Department of Justice. That's extremely inappropriate. And I think that we should discontinue our membership and that local tax dollars should stay local. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. And next we have Mike Cooper.
Mike Cooper, E4627 453rd Avenue, Menomonie. Congratulations to the new board members. This is the start of a new board. This gives the board the opportunity of choosing a new path of greater parental inclusion and again focusing on better academic preparation for their students' future or the choice of continuing down the same path that has been pursued. Recently, U.S. News and World Reports reported on high schools nationwide. Menomonie was found to have a math proficiency of 35% and a reading proficiency of 38%. Yet a graduation rate of 92%. How does that work? As a former high school parent and upcoming school-age grandparent, I'm scratching my head to reconcile these figures. And as a retired industrial tech teacher, I can relate to those statistics. Tech teachers know who is learning in math and in reading classes. If you cannot follow written directions and cannot do the math, your completed projects kind of come out iffy. But those industrial tech kids struggle with the math and reading, but they sure knew their rights in the classroom. Your choice is, are you going to focus on the educational preparation for the students so they can read and follow instructions, do the math, balance a checkbook, or figure out the cost of operating a vehicle? Or are you going to be a nanny state parent to them? I suggest your best option is to let the parents be the parents and you be the educators. Were you there at conception? Were you there at their morning cry? Were you there changing diapers and wiping away the tears? Then please, do not take on the parental responsibilities. There is a constant push by special interests pushing to eliminate parental input and control of their children in the schools. There are those of us who believe that the school's job is to teach reading, writing, arithmetic, and being a good civic-minded citizen. All other training is for the parents to instill in their children. As a side note, there's a documentary in the theaters now that is titled, Whose Kids Are These? If you're serious about the school board's responsibility to the students and what is best for the kids, I urge you to see it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. And now we have Suzette Neiman.
Hi. Before I start, snickering and laughing with the school board on here while somebody's talking, I think it's rude. I know they're new and they should probably get tougher skin so that they aren't, I mean, it'll be on the camera, so whoever that, they can look at it. But I think that's, anyways, that's me. So anyways, Suzette Neiman, and I live at 34 T. Wilson Street, Menomonie. I want to speak about the gender identity issue. I'm not here to be disrespectful of those here that have a different mindset. Children under 18 need parents. Children don't know what is best for them at such a young age. We are confusing the children more and other children that don't have this problem. I call this a problem because it isn't normal. For parents that choose to have their children believe the school should be accepting of this is not right. I was a tomboy. I so wanted to be a boy. And I'm so glad that this wasn't going on back then. We grow up and we can grow out of it. Are we helping those students? It seems we are trying to appease everyone in our world. That is never going to happen. So let's let teachers teach our children the basics. Have the parents work on their children's identity at home, which usually comes from their mother or father. One note on children's speech problems from last month's meeting. It has been proven that masks have been a factor in this. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that concludes our community communications. On to revenue and expenditure reports. Leah?
Okay, we'll take a look at the revenue report first for the month ending April 22. So we look at our general fund 10 operations account. Note common school fund library aid was received, and then also there were several grant revenue payments made in April as well. So for the general fund 10 accounts, we have year to date through the end of April $26,255,277.25. For our gift donation, Fund 21, we've received in $363,429.51. And then for Fund 27, special education, we've received in $1,947,682.15. If we take a look at our expense by function report, once again, we'll look at the general fund, the general operations fund first. We were at 62.85% compared to 60.63% for the same time last year. So expenditures are up. For Fund 27, again, that's our special education fund. We're at 70.62% compared to 66.91%. And then Fund 50, our food service account, we are at 69.60% compared to 74.19%. There was nothing out of the ordinary for the month of April, just in comparing prior years to this year, just the timing of bills and payments being made. And then our last report is our expenditures by object, and this combines all of the funds together. We're at 64.86% this year compared to last year at 70.66%. And again, last year we had a debt service refinancing, so that's why that percentage is so much higher than this year and the prior year. Again, the only issues would be that purchasing bill time. There was no expenditures out of the ordinary for April this year. Any questions?
I have a question on the expenditures by object report, the last one. I'm just trying to understand the numbers. I noticed a couple lines have changed significantly in percentage from the last 2 years. I was curious to understand the flow of those. So in particular, and they're very small amounts, but the textbook number is 128% of the 50K, whereas in previous years it looks like it had been more like 85 or so percent, or 29% the previous years. That one seems highly variable year to year. And then related to that is the equipment and hardware, the following line, looks like it's kind of been underspending at this point in the year versus it was a higher percent of a lower number, a much lower number the previous 2 years. So I was kind of curious how those evolve over time and how those go through.
Yeah, well, like I say, expenditures do vary from year to year, especially textbooks and equipment. Some years we could have equipment breakdowns where then our percentages are higher. For the textbook account, in the budget revisions that you'll be looking at here down in the agenda, we're making transfers, so that percentage will fall under 100% once those budget revisions are made. But it really depends on the timing of the curriculum purchases. Some years we purchase more than other years.
One other line that seemed interesting to me was the property services and rentals, which looks like it went, 372,000 in 2019 at this point, 1.1 million last year, then 700,000 seems like it having jumps around a lot as well. Is that, I'm just kind of curious why.
Okay, that one, we have our computer technology lease that was in prior year. And this year, we don't have that large expenditure. It gets put on the books in the first year of the lease, so then you receive in the full amount, and then it goes down significantly. But then also, we did have some property services. Last year, we had the middle school front entrance secured entryway project. I think we had the weight room at the high school, so combining those, that created that year to be higher than others.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you, Liam. All right. Monthly employment report.
Charlie, this is a report that the board sees monthly. There's nothing really of uniqueness to this report. Are there any questions?
Okay. Moving on then to the consent agenda. Entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
I'll second.
Angie and Tanya. Okay. Any discussion on that? Pretty self-explanatory.
I had one question, Joe, on the health. One of the one with the health claims on it.
Okay.
So we've been trending down fairly nicely for a couple of months and then we bumped up in March again. Is there any specific thing we think's going on or just?
Which file, like,
Um, the what's the name of that one?
The 12-month rolling.
oh,
Yeah, rolling 12 months. So just that last month on there, claims paid for March, I'm sorry.
I think probably it just has more to do with the timing of when people are getting services. We anticipated somewhat of a spend down with the health insurance fund.
People are maybe meeting deductibles finally, things like that.
Right.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, so we'll be approving the minutes from the regular board meeting of April 11th, the reorganizational meeting of April 25th, the special board meeting of April 25th. Financial reports, approved general fund checks in the amount of $1,296,995.20. Cash receipts in the amount of $107,195.02 for the month of April 2022 as presented. Donations, River Heights PTO donated $1,000 to River Heights for Title I book giveaway, and the Anne Marie Foundation donated $2,436 to River Heights for math intervention technology. The minutes that we'll be approving are attached, as well as the financial documents at the bottom. With that, any final discussion? Okay, let's take a vote. Okay, the motion passes 7-0 and with one abstention. Okay, moving on to the personnel consent agenda. Entertain a motion to approve that.
I so move.
Motion by Carl, seconded by Mark. Any discussion?
I had a question. I mean, we talked a little bit at the last meeting about resignations and teacher retention, and I know that's hard thing all over the state, all over the country right now. And I was looking through some of the resignation letters, and of course, everyone's got a personal reason, right, that is making them make this career decision. But I guess I'm wondering, as a district, what we can do, or like what happens next in terms of how we look at what's going on and what we can do to plan for the future. And I know that we're going to talk later during this meeting about I don't know what to call it, the board certification stuff, and that might be part of the answer, but I guess I'm curious if there's something that the board needs to think about proactively right now.
being this agenda item the way it is, I would caution the board to go into great detail.
Oh, okay.
First of all, the personal reasons for why people resign would be in closed session. Second of all, that's not really the topic of the agenda item. But with that being said, I do want to note that I don't think that what we're going to talk about later would have impacted any of the people who are resigning. These are personal situations, and but I do think teacher retention is something we should talk more about.
Maybe you'll bring it up during a later agenda item.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, let's take a vote. Okay, and the motion passes 8-0. On to the action agenda. Approving meal prices for the 2022-2023 school year. You can see in your information there, keeping the meal prices the same as they have been. Entertain a motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Carl, second by Tanya to approve the school lunch prices. Any discussion?
I just want to say, I think the presentation we had last time was really fantastic, and I have full confidence in our medical staff and what they're accomplishing here. It's really good. And I'm also really pleased we're attempting to maintain K-12 free breakfast, and that's super important for kids who might come to school hungry.
Any other discussion?
I would just like to point out that we were hopeful that the free lunch program would continue as well. Like Michelle said at the last meeting, all indications are that it is not. In the event, however, that the free lunch program is extended and some legislation is passed, we certainly will be bringing back a recommendation to make lunch free. But after a couple of years of COVID and the way the lunches went, this is going to be a change next year, reverting back to the prices that we previously had in the district pre-COVID. So hopefully families will, be able to apply for free reduced lunch. Those forms will come out this fall, like Michelle said, but just wanted to repeat that. And we want to make sure people are well informed. So we do have plans this summer to reach out to families a number of times. And I think next fall when the forms come out, there'll be a concerted effort to make sure people get that information.
Joe, is this an appropriate place maybe to remind the public through the video that we have the Angel Fund, and if people in the community wish to donate money that helps offset cost of meals for families who need that, they can donate money through that?
Yeah, absolutely. That falls right in within the meal prices, and we have had a lot of generous donations, but certainly when we have to start charging again, that Angel Fund will become even more important. Thanks, Carl.
Any other discussion? Okay, let's take a vote. Okay, and the motion passes 8-0. Moving on, action agenda 4B, approve 2021-2022 budget revisions. Comment, Joe, Leo? I'm sorry, thank you. Entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Angie, second by Rachel, to approve the budget revisions. Okay, now?
Yeah. Leah went through this last meeting, however, there have been some additions. Leah, is there any comments that you want to make at all, or are there any questions from board members?
I just had a couple last minute changes, so those are highlighted in yellow. Some of those were site budget revision requests from the various schools. We did have a flex benefit revision, there were some increases in costs there. And then we did receive the payment for that debt service defeasance, and so I was able to add that into this budget revision as well.
Just for my own education, these are all UFAR codes on the left, is that right? So I can check into the state spreadsheet, okay, thanks.
All right, any other discussions, questions? Okay, take a vote. Okay, the motion passes 8-0. Item 4C, approve additions to the 2022-2023 staffing plan. Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Motion by Angie, seconded by Mark. Any discussion?
Charlie has noted in board docs, so this is something that's occurred pretty much every year that I can remember. The principals, school counselors, and staff at the high school have continued to work on student schedules. And similar to previous years, it's recommended that the board approve requests from MHS to allow for a 2-section overload in science and a 1-section overload in agriculture. This allows us to provide more courses for students without having to disrupt their schedules. Each of the new courses, or not new courses, each of the courses being offered by these overloads will meet the minimum threshold of 15 students. So the administration is recommending that the board approve this.
Any questions? Okay, let's take a vote. Okay, so the motion passes 8-0. Moving on to 4D, excuse me, approve seasonal and substitute wage rates for 2022-2023. Entertain a motion to approve.
I'll second that.
So I have a motion by Rachel and a second by Angie. Any discussion?
Charlie, this is housekeeping. Now that the board has set the compensation increases, we go back and then to our substitute rate sheet, we add the same percentage increase on. So the 4.7% has been applied, and we're looking for board approval so we can include this in our employee handbook and other documents for next year.
Any discussion? Okay, let's take a vote. And the motion passes 8-0. 4E, approve bids for school forest timber sale.
I so move.
Second, Abe?
Motion by Carl, second by Abe to approve. Discussion?
For the new board members, this is something Brian had presented last winter, and this has been a long-range plan, working with the DNR forester. And Brian, appreciate his work on this, working through the bid process. The board members will receive the bids, and you can see that it is recommended that the district accept the bid from Byers Forestry.
Any discussion, questions?
So I just want to say I was impressed with the documentation on the plan. When I first saw the agenda item, I was a little concerned, right? But I was thinking to myself, you should go talk to Kyle at the DNR, because he's the regional forestry expert, right? And of course, he's the one who prepared this report. It's fantastically detailed, it's thoughtful. The one thing I would want us to think ahead about, which I think is in the long-term planning, is as you do species removal and clearing for timber sale, you have to think about the next generation of wildlife and kind of agricultural, or not agriculture, but herbiculture overall is just gonna come in. So we have to start thinking about how to weed invasive species mitigation and so on. So that'll be kind of an ongoing process over the next several years.
Any other discussion?
I'm trying to find where it was, but there was mention that historically timber funds have been reinvested back into the site. Is that part of this vote? Are we saying that's what's gonna happen?
Yes, in fact, that's what has to happen based on policy.
Good policy.
Any other questions, comments? Anything you want to add, huh? Thank you. Thank you for your work, not thank you for not adding. All right, let's take a vote. Okay, the motion passes 8-0. On to the discussion agenda. 5A, discuss movement into master's teacher lane for national board certification.
So board members, you had the opportunity to review this proposal, and it's not up for a vote tonight, but it is being recommended by the administrative team. I want to thank Samantha White, the Director of Human Resources, and the other directors and principals who provided input on this. We also have received input on this from teaching staff along the way. Now, to Rachel's earlier question about teacher retention, this is not a silver bullet. It's not going to all of a sudden make it where no teacher ever resigns from the school district. However, we continue to look for ways to make the teaching profession and the compensation for teaching, for the teaching profession specifically, more attractive. And after Act 10, many districts did many different things with compensation. In Menomonie, we continue to prioritize additional training and additional education for our staff. And because of that, we have a good, real high percentage of teachers who do have master's degrees. What we have found though is that the cost of getting master's degrees is prohibitive for a number of our teaching staff. We've tried different mechanisms. We hosted a cohort here that we partnered with UW Stout, and we had a number of teachers receive their master's degree through that program. But even making the degree and the program on site and trying to make it easier, it still is very costly for staff. What we have found is that a number of teachers in our district, not that many yet, have looked into becoming nationally board certified. And in reviewing the process for becoming national board certified, it's a rigorous process, and I know the information is in your background packet, and it's continuing. So unlike a master's degree where you may, have a number of courses and projects for a couple of years and then get your master's degree, the national board certification is something where you get certification and then there's a recertification process. The state of Wisconsin is behind the national board certified teaching process. There are stipends that our teachers can earn that first of all can help pay for the cost of certification and essentially almost make it free depending on each state budget allocation. But also there's an annual stipend teachers can receive after they do receive that certification. So there's a financial incentive as well. What we would like to do is we would like to encourage our teachers to consider national board certification, and we would like to recognize the national board certification with movement into the master's teachers lane for those teachers who may think the national board certification is more appropriate for them than perhaps going and accomplishing a master's degree. Not that we would prohibit that. For some people, that still may be an option that's preferred. This would just be an alternate to allow teachers to get into that master's lane if that's something they so choose to do. Are there any questions or comments?
I think this is a great idea, actually, as a teacher myself before I left my position. I had sort of looked into grad school or national board, and I think national board was nice for teachers that have a specific content area too. It seemed more practical, and it definitely was more financially doable than a full grad program.
We think so too.
Do you anticipate any kind of pushback or hard feelings from teachers who have gone the master's route in terms of what that means for salary structure?
I think some people may have wished that they had this opportunity 5 years ago, even 2 years ago. I do know that our staff though has really good camaraderie with each other, and I think that although people may wish that they had had this opportunity, I think they'll also be glad for their colleagues that now have the opportunity. But anytime you start something like this new, there is a little bit of that. But I have spoken with a few teachers, and we've talked about different things with this. Targeting an alternate into the master's lane is something that we've been studying now for over a year. And some of the proposals may not have been as accredited as national board certification. And even with some of those ideas, the teachers I talked to still seem supportive of trying to find ways for the newer teachers to get into that master's lane without having to shell out so much money for a master's degree.
Thank you.
Could you talk a little more about the recertification program? I noticed there's discussion of this program would move a teacher into the master's lane, so to speak, of the teacher pay scale, but then if they fail to recertify, they'd be moved back out of that again. So I'm curious about that sort of timeline of renewal and what demands that would go on people on a perpetual way. And then secondly, you mentioned that this can be a stepping stone into a master's program if one would want to. What do the timelines and expenses look like for that, for a typical teacher?
That I don't know. It depends on what kind of master's degree they would want to pursue. What I'm saying is this would not prohibit them from doing so. I don't know how many people would actually want to do both unless that master's degree was for, promotion or a change. And yeah, we better check it out. We do have internal rooms if we need to take cover, but let's check it out here. We good?
I think it's west of us.
Okay. It's north of us? Okay, if anybody is concerned, the restroom facilities here also are internal rooms with no windows. Any of the directors or principals, if you need to leave, I understand. Okay, but back to what we were talking about. This is not prohibited from someone getting a master's degree. The recertification piece, I do think there will be more rigor compared to, where you, sorry.
Let's say county warning for
It's over
northern Doug
Boyceville,
County.
11 miles northwest, moving northeast from Boyceville.
I haven't heard the sirens here go off yet, have you? Okay. Should I continue?
Until the next meeting.
In terms of what it takes for recertification, that's kind of detailed on the website for the teacher national board certification. But you can see that the cost currently is $495 and then a $75 registration fee. There may be an opportunity for people to submit those costs, however, and get reimbursement as well. Now, to your question, if someone does get certification, moves into the master's lane, and then lets their certification lapse, that's a difference, and we've tried to account for that. So what we would do is we would still move people down the scale in terms of the years they were here, but we would then move them back over to the non-master's lane, whatever corresponding cell it would be. Any other questions? We would like to bring this back for your approval at the next meeting if possible.
Do you know offhand how many teachers in the country have taken this path and are certified or?
I think currently, we talked about it today, I think locally we have 4. In terms of across the country, I don't have a number for that.
125,000.
Well, there it is.
I'm sorry. More than that.
More than 125,000.
Oh, yeah.
And I said it already, but I just want to repeat, I do really like the idea that it's continuous. I think there's some real benefit to that.
On the continuous note, you see it interacting with the PD that we have internally in some way, or is it separate collection of tasks and trainings?
I haven't gone through the national board certification myself, but my understanding that there is a connection between not only perhaps professional development in the district, but also the work you're doing in the school district. So yeah, I think it can be pretty practical. Brian, is there anything you wanted to add to that?
The thing I was gonna add that I think makes this worthwhile is the ongoing nature of it, and the staff will identify that portfolio once they receive that, so there are a lot of good connections.
So the intent then is to bring this back at the next meeting for approval?
Yes.
Any other discussion?
And if I could comment, we would like the approval now so that if teachers do want to jump on this and get it started as soon as possible, that they can do that with confidence that they'll be recognized with a movement into the master's lane.
When you say approval now, you look
At the next
consent.
meeting.
Okay,
At the next meeting.
Great, thank you. Okay, any other discussion on that? Okay, 5B, discuss membership in National School Board Association. So back on February 14th, I believe it was Clint, asked for an agenda item to discuss us declining our membership, if you will, into the National School Board Association. At the time, we decided to table it until May, so here it is. It is in policy 163.1 that we need to be a member of the association, so if we do want to change, we would need to change that policy, which of course we can do, but we would need to do that, and we need to go through the process. We can discuss, the pros and cons of being a member, not being a member. I guess, where would you like to go? Discussion on that end. Any thoughts?
Charlie, if I could just point out, and this is ultimately, it's the board's decision. If I could point out, however, if there is no change, then because policy states that we're a member, we would continue. I think you said that, but I want to make sure everyone understands it.
What's the time of year that we pay the annual dues?
Leah, do you know that?
I believe it's around the first.
Oh,
Our new fiscal year starts July 1, so that's typically the renewal of most memberships.
I guess from the standpoint of like being a member in this organization, I think on a big picture, I personally think that having a connection to and a stake in advocacy for public education at the national level as well. I think we all recognize the benefit we get from the WSBA, and I think having that representation and advocacy at the national level is something that's important. And I think simply withdrawing from them isn't a decision to take lightly or make a gut reaction kind of decision on.
What happened in January at the state level for WASB's participation with the
So,
School Board Association?
if any board member wants, say one member there. My understanding is that WASB, so the group of school board member delegates, changed WASB's bylaws to the impact that they still would belong to a national organization, but it does not have to be the National School Board Association. John actually had said that WASB was kind of in a wait and see mode to see what transpires. That's the last that I had heard.
So is this basically on the agenda because you're asking the board what we would like to see happen?
If we want to remove ourselves from the association, we need to change our policy in order to do that. That takes a change in policy and then a second reading. So it would take us some time to do that. I guess the first question would be some sort of a consensus. Do we want on that next agenda, on that next meeting, a change to that policy, or do we want to keep the policy as is and move forward?
At the time that we discussed it, were we more inclined to wait to see what the direction of WASB went? Was that what the board had decided at the time? And
That
there's been no change in WASB's position with the National School Board Association yet?
That was a comment that I made at that time, was to, let's just kind of let a little bit of time pass here and see what happens. But I don't know that any changes have really happened in that time that we waited. Will they? I don't know. But
So for the benefit of the new board members, what benefits do we receive from the National School Board Association? Because I personally haven't benefited from them at all as a board member here.
Well, we do receive materials that have a national perspective. You probably receive emails from the National School Board Association. We receive a lot of stuff that has state level perspective. That's kind of where we get national level perspective on things. We also do, so we have in the past had board members attend the national convention. Now with COVID, there hasn't been much of that in the last 2 years, but I know we have had a number of board members in the past who have gone and who have said that the convention's terrific. And we know the state convention's terrific. My understanding from, and I haven't been to the National School Board Association convention, but for board members to get that national perspective has been very eye-opening and very helpful. But I think Rachel's really hit it on the head. It's having that federal advocacy, which I can understand why that's so challenging for the board to decide whether or not to potentially continue to belong, because some of that federal advocacy, I think, is the reason why this is even on the agenda in the first place. I think some of that went in a direction that probably wasn't very reflective of a number of the school boards that organization represents. I would like to think that, with the attention that it received, that perhaps improvements will be made. I do think Scott Parker, speaking tonight, had some relevant points, though, that with the number of schools dropping out, you wonder what kind of voice NSBA is going to have moving forward. I think the more schools that drop out, the less of a voice they will have, which frankly I think can be problematic. I think back to the federal funds we received for COVID, and then I think of the special education funding, I think about the title funding. I think it's very important for us to have a voice. Not saying that it has to be the SBA, but I'm not going to Washington D.C. At least I haven't yet. Some of my colleagues, we do have a superintendent representative from Wisconsin, so we are represented. But I think without the board at the table being represented, I think that could be problematic for schools, especially now when there's so much change and so much funding change, especially. So I'd be a little hesitant. I maybe my personal opinion is I'd like to see how NSBA reacts, and if the improvements and the change in staffing and stuff has put them in a better situation moving forward. It does cost us $4,165, which every dollar we spend is a dollar we can't spend on something else. But when you look at the millions of dollars that we receive, whether it be through the COVID funding or the special ed funding or the title funding, I think $4,000 is a very small amount for the advocacy of all this other funding that we end up getting. So it's a difficult decision, I think, for the board. But just to reiterate, the reason why this is on here tonight is because back in December, the board said, bring it back to us in May. We'll see if anything's changed since then. And unless a board member or the board as a whole wants to add this to the agenda again, in terms of reviewing policy 163.1, the district would renew our membership on July 1st.
Just to clarify, is it accurate that for a school district the size of Menomonie, there's not really another national option for an advocacy group, right? Like if we left NSBA.
I'm not aware of any for school boards. Now, I am part of the American Association of School Administrators. So we have a national presence there. Certainly NEA, the teachers union has a presence at the national level. So there are other organizations, but in terms of organizations representing school boards, I am not aware.
Yeah, I don't see the NSBA in the last year, and of course with COVID, they're not traveling. But I do see it more as a way to have a voice in Washington, which whether you like it or not, you kind of have to, because everyone's got one. So if you don't have one, you're kind of not speaking, right? And so public education needs as many voices as we can have. I personally was taken a little aback with some of the language that was also used in some of that process that was spoken about. And I also sat in board meetings where there was moments where I didn't feel 100% comfortable being in the board meeting last year because things were a little excited. Now, not terrible, but it was tense. So, you know, I do have a little bit of perspective that way, having to sit in front of the crowds of people that have different opinions. I think the approach of the WASB, the idea that you belong to something, I think that's very valid. I think we should have some sort of a contribution to the voice for public education. I would love it if we could choose, right? Competition usually leads to better outcomes amongst organizations. I just don't know what other choices there are at the moment. And I don't know, without doing a little more homework, if the people who did some of that communicating in that way are still there, or if there's been replacements, or I don't know if any other board members know that.
Based on the articles that were linked in our board docs here, my understanding is the CEO has been replaced. So the person who made those final decisions is no longer at NS. I keep getting the acronyms wrong. I want to call it NASB, whatever, NSBA, NSAB.
We know what you're talking about.
Yeah, the national.
I think I had a thought similar to Carl and what Rachel just said, that I want to read to figure out if there are alternative national organizations. I suspect there are not, based on what we've heard. I think there is a very important point, you know, I think that Scott Parker's statement earlier, you know, so that there was indeed an error in judgment, both, you know, politically and practically speaking, at that national organization. And the question is, as others have said, you know, how do they respond to it? And both people and individuals often do foolish or misguided things when they're under a lot of stress, which I think all of us were here and elsewhere last year. And it's kind of how we recover from it and bounce back that kind of defines us, right? Not the action necessarily itself. So I don't have a strong take either way, but I personally think it would be very interesting to, you know, go to some form of national convention to understand how education is going around the country, because, you know, Wisconsin has its own unique history in terms of funding of public education, a system that almost no other state has a system like ours, right, with this, with the way the tax situation works. So understanding how education is funded and how boards operate across different states, I think would be a very important thing to keep our finger on as the situation in Wisconsin may change over time. So.
I don't receive the emails. A lot of them I felt like, and maybe you guys are getting them now, I felt like didn't pertain to what is going on here locally. I feel like those dollars aren't spent in a way that benefits our kids directly. And I can think of a lot better ways to spend $4,100. So for me, I think it would send a message as a school board that we don't approve of what was done. And I think as they try to rebuild, possibly it would be something we would rejoin in the future, or as other associations pop up from this, it would be something that we could look at joining, but I would lean toward not changing the policy and not joining.
Many of us are at this table right now because we seek change from within rather than from outside. That's why we ran for the board. I would challenge any of you or of us, get on the national board. For those of us that were at the new board member orientation, one of the gentlemen that was there is a past member of the national board. There are many representatives from Wisconsin have been on that board. I think that that's a better way myself to seek change, to try to do it from within. That's myself. I completely agree with the sentiment and with Scott. I think what they did was a grievous error. But I don't know that I would be in favor of running at this point. As Abe said, let's see what they do when they get back up, as they find themselves right now. So that's just my opinion. I guess maybe should we leave it at this? If Angie, if you want to request an agenda item for the next meeting, to request a change to that policy, then we would do it at that point. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay. Anybody have any issues with that? All right. So, speaking of that next meeting, moving on to next meeting dates, board committee and reports. May 23rd, meeting here, 5:45. May 29th, high school graduation. June 6th is our school board retreat. Do we know where that is yet?
Yeah, that'll be out at Jake's.
Okay. June 13th is another regular scheduled meeting, and June 27th as well. Any questions, comments, thoughts?
So was the June 6th date resolved, that it is conflict?
Yes.
Yes, yes, thankfully. All right.
Charlie, I have one more thing on the upcoming items.
Oh, sorry.
There's a link in there to the different legal webinars from WASB. And Charlie, I know this is something you and I talked about. There's a lot of great webinars. A number of them are free. And if board members are interested in those, need any help registering, or if you would like to participate in one that's not free, please contact me, and Jenny and I can help get you registered with those. Thank you.
Okay, so we would entertain a motion to move into closed session. Take 5-minute break. Yeah. Come on, break. Work it around.
Can I just share that there is a line of severe weather that's gonna go through the area between 7 and 7:30? So if you're traveling or don't have access to technology, just be aware that there's severe weather.